Hey, I'm Ken Napzok, and this is the Three Things. Welcome to the show tonight. This is a podcast first, so I'm on YouTube most of the time these days, so I'm going to try to stare in the camera as much as possible. But you are watching me record a podcast, and I've been doing the Three Things off and on for a while now. It used to be a staple over on the Napzok Files and Napzok Network podcast feed. Still up and running, and I hope you're listening to it there. Listening to it. It's like the Nixon-Kennedy debates. You're going to get a different view if you listen to it. You're going to get a different feeling if you listen to it. But if you're watching me record it, I'm not going to lie, it feels sometimes awkward because this is me just speaking from the heart, and that does not always bode well for staring directly into the camera. But I'm trying to do that more here for you on YouTube. It's very hard for broadcasters to do straight to camera. I give people all the credit who can just fire that off with YouTube Shorts and Reels and TikToks and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get better at it. So that's not me being a grumpy old man at the new styles of entertainment and getting the word out. That's me tipping the cap to all of you who do it well. I don't think I necessarily do it well. The crux of the show has always been, hey, the three things on my mind this week. And if you look back at old episodes, I think most of them were about what I was doing, eating, or wanting to eat at 7-Eleven, which is fine. We should just do a 7-Eleven podcast. That's always been in the back of my mind. I should have just really leaned into being the 7-Eleven guy more than I was and just brought microphones into a 7-Eleven and interviewed people. Hell, I could still do that. I'm friends with the manager at the one near me. You know, maybe we'll do that, just like you used to have the Sizzler podcast. But what's happening today on the show? We're going to go right at things that you're not supposed to talk about: religion and politics and art and the understanding of art. And I understand that. And I'm going to talk about the Epstein Files today. And I guess a little bit of a warning for those if it's not something you want to, hang around for. It's pretty horrific. It's pretty frustrating. It's pretty anger-inducing. It's pretty disgusting. It's pretty despicable. It's all those things. I don't have anything new to add to it. You're not getting the greatest, mind right here. I'm just a dumb guy at the end of the bar. But it's on my mind. And this shows the three things that are on my mind this week. And I have some big things that are on my mind this week. So there you go. Let's get into it with number three. Number three, we are still, as I record this, a couple days after the hoopla surrounding. That's right. I love the word hoopla. Around the kerfuffle around the Bad Bunny halftime show. And I've said this on the Blathering. I talked about it on Culture, Faith, and Politics with Pat Conkey. I'll say it again here. I'm still kind of baffled that we're talking about a halftime show at the Super Bowl. Now, it is a big thing. It has been a big thing for a while. And every year, the artists that get bestowed the honor take it very seriously. But it's still like 20 minutes of show tunes to me in my mind. Like it's not that, but I still, maybe because I've been watching football for so long, I still forget that it's not like marching bands playing Hang On Sloopy. It's far moved past that, but I still kind of think it's like we're talking halftime here. That's when you get up and you go refill the Dorito bowl, make the run to the bathroom. Even if you're not a Super Bowl party, like you walk the dog, if you're into the game or watching the game or experiencing the game, the halftime's a break. Now, halftime is counter-programming. It's always been counter-programming, and I think a lot of people misunderstand that. I actually saw some great takes about this on the Dan Le Batard show. He and his crew talking about, the folks that want Metallica or even Kid Rock or anything like it. Halftime's a little bit of counter-programming. The Super Bowl is this big enough thing where you got the football for the sports fans and those trying to, experience that, and halftime is those who are interested in the spectacle. Of all kinds of folks, by the way. This isn't the men watch the football, the women watch the dancing. It isn't that. It's just, I know a lot of folks who just, I don't really watch football, but I like going to the parties. It's bigger than even what it used to be. And of course, the history of that has a lot to do with the TV show In Living Color. If you have not heard that story, I'm not going to recount it here because I don't recall every detail, but go back to the early 90s. Super Bowl halftime show was still kind of that marching band thing, just on a bigger scale. A lot of dances like this with woo, and that's what they did, woo. And then In Living Color did some counter programming, and it kind of blew it on up to where it is today. They deserve a lot of credit for that. But all that to say, the halftime show is big, so I get that there's a conversation around who is on it. And this, but I'm hoping this fades away. I'm hoping the fact that we've had so many words said, so much blood spilt in the culture war on Bad Bunny performing at halftime. Bad Bunny not speaking a lick of English. Not true, by the way. And Bad Bunny destroyed America. I keep mocking it because I think it deserves to be mocked. I think it really deserves to be mocked, this idea that this wasn't representing America. And as, of course, everyone knows, from Puerto Rico, makes him an American citizen, and all those kind of little lessons that I think a lot of people are learning right now. But this isn't about that. This is about one particular angle of it, because I'm not even going to focus on the Turning Point USA show and whatever that was. I didn't see it. I saw a couple clips. That was it. Unlike Trump, like Trump, I watched Bad Bunny, right? He watched Bad Bunny. He put it on just so he could hate watch it. Maybe a lot of people hate watched it to like the most watched halftime show in history so far. So this isn't about Turning Point USA. I don't care about that. But what I care about is this, folks just using this as again, another battlefield in the cultural war, but just how so many people just I don't really think they believe in what they're fighting for anymore. Again, not on that side, but the folks that are like, how dare he to Bad Bunny, the Megyn Kellys and all that stuff. I have trouble believing that any of it's completely real, that it's deep down in their soul, this is what they really feel. I just feel this is what they feel. They have to feel that the word comes down from the top that, I don't mean that in conspiracy theory vein, just put a pin in that and have some thoughts on conspiracy theories later. But I think just kind of the word leaks out from either the president, his administration, Fox News, whatever it is, wherever the conservative talking heads are, the word comes out that this is bad. Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl is bad. It's disrespectful. How dare they? And that just gets regurgitated. And why I think it should be mocked and why I think it's pathetic is just watch the performance. And again, this isn't about whether you like his music or not. A lot of people put that quality. I'm not the biggest fan, but who cares? Who cares? This show, I think, was one of the best uses of the platform. Bad Bunny and his team put together not just a great fun show, they put together a pretty powerful show. He stepped up to the moment. I think Kendrick Lamar did as well last year. But more than any other halftime show that I can think of, other than maybe Kendrick Lamar, again, because it was so recent, but other than any other halftime show I can think of, Bad Bunny knew what he was doing, knew who was watching, knew who he was trying to reach, and knew how to say it, knew how to present it in this way that was fun, was something that could make you groove, make you move. It was sexy, it was sensual, it was true. It was great representation of his culture and so many other like him, so many other, countries in the Americas, and him focusing on the Americas. Not just this one little big part of North America, but this entire part of the world. It was such a great use of the platform. And has things that I hope educated. I keep saying this in other spots, so I don't need to go into too much detail here, but why at the halftime show are there power poles exploding and not working? What's that about? I hope that leads some people to looking into what's going on in Puerto Rico or what has been going on. Ricky Martin shows up. That's great. Hey, the La Vida Loca guy. Awesome. What's he doing? He's singing a song about Hawaii and what's going on in Hawaii that the people in Puerto Rico don't want to have happen to them. What's going on? I hope some people took a moment. Hell, why are we even spelling Hawaii different now? What's going on with that? I hope that does cause some people to look a little deeper. It was such a great use of the platform. It was perfection. It was the perfect use of the platform. But beneath all that, beneath the hard lessons, was this great show. He rose to the occasion, not only met it, smashed through it, and it was full of joy and love. Family, community, celebration, an actual goddamn wedding. Lady Gaga. Right? And Pedro Pascal, Jessica Alba, Cardi B, and everyone else there. It was such a joyful experience, wrapped up in this message of together we are all America, and the only thing more powerful than hate is love. That's the message. That's on the wall. That's on the football. He says, God bless America. Because he means it, number one, but two, because it was like, yeah, I know some of you might have heard that I'm against all this, but actually, I'm not only a part of it, I believe in this, and that includes the things that I say that are about what's going on with ICE or what's going on in the world or what's going on in my country and how we're treated and how we're viewed. It all comes from a place of love for America and the Americas, and for the love of people, and love over hate, right? And it's almost pretty simple. It's bumper sticker stuff. So you take that, and then you take the people. I'm not even talking about the talking heads, but I'm sure we all know people like, I didn't watch that shit. Yeah, I swing through Facebook. I swing through Facebook and see some people I know. I'm watching Kid Rock. I'm giving him the click. Well, congratulations. I think most of the clicks were purchased because they were bots. Bots were bought. They inflated the numbers, and the numbers weren't even that great. There's some great stats out there on that, by the way. That I hate to say came from Candace Owens. I hate to say it, but I'm going to let her cook too. Just let her cook. I'm not here to even analyze it. But Candace Owens actually put some information out there about how the numbers for this Turning Point USA halftime show were completely cooked. Bot, paid for, and not real. Dare I say, check it out. But it is what it is. But for those folks who just had that gut reaction of brown man on my screen singing, dancing in a language and a culture I don't understand equal bad. And that this other thing equal good, equal America. You're standing against this very clear message of together, we're all America. Together. God bless America. Love over hate. Love is more powerful than hate. Joy. Dancing. Fun. You stand in opposition to that. To watch a bunch of guys, gals, and whoever was performing sing about, it ain't gonna cancel my ass. You telling me I gotta explain to my kid that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy? That, this false sense of power, this fragile hold on the position that you think you have. We don't even need to get into the fragility of it, but that's what it is. And that art like what Bad Bunny put out there. Not even the deepest of art. Just a show depicting so many wonderful things and so many important things. You stood in opposition of that. There's so many other things that we got going on that, will put you on the wrong side of history. But I don't know if I'm going to forget that. Forgiving it's another thing, but I don't know if I'm going to forget. It's not even about forgiveness. Is another thing. Say it out loud. What I'm not going to forget is the people I know who made such a stink about Benito, Bad Bunny, coming on to the world stage and not speaking the King's English in my country. We don't actually even have an official language, right? We haven't determined that one there. And we have a dominant one. It's so dominant that the rest of the world has to make sure that there's English signs everywhere because we don't learn any other languages. And I'm guilty of that too. 2 days in France and, third day I might have been lost forever. But you know where I'm going. You know what's on my mind. You all stood in opposition of love, of joy, and the pearl clutching, including the dancing. This is something I want to talk about too. This came up on some other shows. And I think it needs to come up because the president of our country took to Truth Social after clearly watching this halftime show over the other one. At least his handlers who have control of his account did. In the long tirade, also bringing up the dancing, the dancing in front of the kids. Please, won't someone think of the children? Yeah, I'm not suggesting we drop children in the middle of, some hot salsa class with adults upstairs at a bar. I get if you're a parent, you're like, you get the right to choose, if you want your 6-year-old to watch a sexy music video, I got it. I don't even fault my parents that they did not want me to watch Prince videos or Paula Abdul videos. Cold Hearted Snake, confirmed some things in my mind. Too young for my parents, but I get it. I get it. But it leads to this bigger conversation too, just about our American-centric kind of thought for the rest of the world and how puritanical we are. Yeah, there was some real sexy people of all kinds dancing, and I'm even talking about the ones in the plant in the shrubbery there. They were dancing pretty great, pretty sensual, maybe even sexual. But we see it as sexy dancing. Most of the rest of the world sees it as dancing. That's another aspect of our culture, too. We're so used to pearl clutching. We're so used to buttoning up all of our shirts to the top button in this country for the betterment of our souls in front of God that you watch some other cultures just embrace their sensuality even more than their sexuality, but embrace just their energy, their connections, their moves, their connection with their body, their connection with others. And you watch it for 20 minutes on the Super Bowl, and this is the downfall of the children. That bothered me as well, too. But it didn't bother me enough to not enjoy it and to not absolutely love what was done during the halftime show. And to those that stood on the opposite side of love and joy and togetherness, I hope you one day find the connection you lack. Next up on my list here, we're just going right at it. There's a musical performer, goes by the name of Jelly Roll. What's this? Jason. And recently at the Grammys, he took the stage and spoke very loudly and I'll say forcibly about his faith and his journey as a Christian. And then afterwards was asked some pretty direct questions of what was going on with ICE or just politics in this country, and he didn't have a lot to say. In fact, he said, hey, no one should care about my opinion. I'm just a dumb redneck. Until a couple of years ago, I didn't even have a phone, wasn't paying attention to this. Don't ask me. A big no comment. And I have some thoughts on it in the conversation around it. And I'll say this, I have not met Jelly Roll, but I've been around him. I've not met him like a handshake, but I've been around him. I have some friends in a great band who are friends with him. And I could say, outside of, I heard there was an issue with him and the way he maybe talked to some reporters, particularly ones that have put out some articles recently about him. I think it was Rolling Stone, but I could be wrong, of him, quote unquote, being mega, and he confronted them at the Grammys. I heard that through passing, but I got to say that wasn't even as direct as I would like to say to confirm it. We're all human beings, and you catch someone on a bad day or something going on or someone feeling stressed, and they might act a certain way. But by all accounts, the man known as Jelly Roll, the man who performs as Jelly Roll, is actually a pretty good dude, at least right now. I just want to say that. This is a guy who's been through a lot. You can see it on his face, literally. And I don't mean that it's a snipe at the tattoos and everything, but you can see it on his face. He's been through a lot. He's been open and honest about it. And he also puts some of his money where his mouth is. There's some things he does in his communities that I actually look up to. And that's where I start this conversation. I don't know him. I've been around him briefly a couple years ago. And again, people I love and trust are like, that's a good dude. It doesn't mean everyone's perspective on that is right, but I think he's a good dude. And yeah, he has found faith or leaned harder into his faith. He's also been on a pretty impressive health journey, which I don't want to say weight loss journey. He has lost a lot of weight, but you could be comfortable and happy with however you are in terms of numbers. But he decided to change his number for reasons that were personal to him, and he's done it. And I think it's part of what's going on with him. And as his fame and celebrity has risen, and it has, even when I knew him a couple years ago, he was like, a feature act. Now he's a headlining act, and that comes with a lot of pressures, comes with a lot of changes, comes with a lot of stresses, and he has leaned heavily into his faith. And he's leaned heavily into a way in which he wants to speak about it. That is not always well received, and I'm someone who, it's not my favorite thing either. And I've been kind of against that from even when I was in the church. It just wasn't something like, are we supposed to pray at this Burger King? Does God want us to bless this whopper? Or are we wanting people to see that we think God's blessing our whopper? That's just something I've been in my head since like 7 or 8, 9. But I bring this all up to say, he got a lot of heat, and as I think he should, for not saying anything and playing the, you don't want my opinion. We do want your opinion. We do want your opinion. So much of what goes on in the world is driven by religious forces. And I think where I was really upset, and I will say this, I was going to record this episode last week. I got completely distracted in the best possible way, had an unexpected reunion with some friends, and it was great. So I didn't record the episode last week when it would have been fresher. But I also wanted to sit with it because I didn't want to come out here and start doing what other people have been doing, which is yelling at this man, Jason, known as Jelly Roll. And because I just don't know how effective that is. Trust me, there's some people I think you should yell at. Some people I do think are hiding behind religious conversion. I'll stop short of saying it's a full-on grift, but I look at someone like Russell Brand, and I don't believe him. I don't believe his actions. I believe he might be hiding and running from some of the truths. But how do I? No, I don't know. I don't know. He can say what he wants. It's the fruits, right, that we will judge people by. But I don't know in this particular case, because I think it's case by case. I don't know if it's fair to come so hard at Jelly Roll. And yes, I know it was Jason, but it's like Bad Bunny, Jelly Roll. You get a good name, kid. Get a good brand and make it your own. I don't think it's right. I don't have it in my heart in this particular case. Maybe you do. I don't have it in my heart to go hard after him for speaking so publicly about his Christianity and his own personal salvation and his relationship with the Gospels. I don't have it in me to go hard after him for this, but I do wish we could have those conversations with folks like him and say the reason we're all upset, beyond just, hey, maybe we don't like the evangelical kind of, trumpet blowing and all that kind of, maybe there's an issue with that. Got it. But for me, it's a bit of a cop-out to go out there and so publicly speak about your religion, your journey, your salvation, which I think is very real to someone like him. I want to make that clear. I think it's very real to someone like him, and I would not take that away from him. That's, I think, where I'm going. I would not take that away from him. I believe his journey and his walk with God, I think, is very real. And he wants to talk about it. He wants to talk about it loudly, proudly, and use his platform just as we ask everyone else to use his platform. That's what we got going on. We say use your platform, and sometimes someone uses it and you don't fully agree with it. And sometimes maybe what they're saying is completely wrong. Yeah, I get it. But in this particular case, I'm not going after him for that, but I do wish we could get across that, hey, people are reacting to, because I don't want to corner him, because I think when you corner, they can make more mistakes. He could double down on it. He can hurt more people, or he can be more upset, and just it spirals out. My thing would say is the reason we're so upset is in these times. Look around these times. And if you don't pay attention to the news and you're not on your phone, that's fine. I know a lot of people that aren't, and that's probably sometimes smarter. But if you're unconnected, get connected. If you're not paying attention, have someone pay attention for you or with you. There's a lot going on, and a lot of it driven, particularly in this country, driven by people who use their Bible and their religion and their so-called relationship with Christ as a shield, and in some cases, a weapon. And I have big issues, of course, with politicians who would put forth legislation, discriminatory legislation, oppressive legislation, restrictive legislation, based solely on what they believe is in the Bible, right? I do have some issues with that, but I'm not a scholar. Go listen to Dan McClellan or Holy Kool-Aid's another great channel, or even the channel I helped produce, Pat Conkey, I think's got one of the best views on it. He speaks with love and strength. I don't have a full grasp on that, but I'd love to get into, you're basing so much of this, your beliefs that you want to pass into law based off something that, at worst just might be completely made up, or at best is some good old-fashioned hearsay tales, stories with some beautiful, wonderful, powerful things in it that might be real to you and might have value to others if they were to hear that, but it's not enough to me to put the church and state together. But that's the thing. It always kind of has been. I'm not here to talk about the Crusades. I'm not here to even talk about manifest destiny. I'm here to talk about the last 50 to 60 years. And again, I'm not a historian. There's others to look at. But I think it's frustrating when you see things going on in Minnesota. You see things just going on in other parts of the country with ICE. You see what this administration's doing. And again, maybe some folks think it's great. But a lot of folks don't. But when you see all this going on and someone with that big platform who has just gone out and said, hey, you can have a relationship with Jesus Christ or whatever it is, if you see him say that with that conviction, and then he backs away off commenting off the political things of the day, and maybe he's afraid to offend his audience, maybe he knows his core audience, and maybe he's not an expert on it. Talk about Jelly Roll. I understand. I understand. There are certain things, I try to keep tabs on everything, but I'm not the expert on it here. And so I don't want to sometimes wade into the waters of bigger issues. And I think it's sometimes fair to say, look, I don't know. But he didn't even say that. It was this, I got nothing. Praise be to Jesus, I got nothing. And there's kind of this thought that the church shouldn't be political. It shouldn't speak on political matters. I see this a lot. There are actually a lot of evangelical pastors out there. There are a lot of them who every Sunday do speak out against Trump. I think there's more that don't, and there's a lot that feel they can't, but there's some that do. We should give them credit. I think they're doing it right. But often I hear the reasons given for, hey, why pastors shouldn't do that, why churches should do that is we shouldn't be political. But over the last 50, 60 years, and again, there's other historian YouTubers and YouTube channels that cover this better than I do, and I love watching them. So I'm just kind of regurgitating here, but for the last 50, 60 years, you damn well better believe that the church, capital T, capital C, has been political. You need to look no further than some of the political activist and political think tank groups that have, probably Christian, crosses on the stationery, who are not only in the ear of conservative politicians, including presidents, but are intentionally entangling it to affect the very future of our country. Heritage Foundation, John Birch Society, the Moral Majority, Focus on the Family. The list goes on and on and on. You see what I mean? If you look into the Southern Strategy and the big party switch, you look into the issues around the pro-life movement, around the abortion issues. That kind of really crystallizes in the early 70s, in large part because the churches, again, capital T, capital C, using that in a general sense, the churches lost out on the segregation fight. A lot of the churches of the South, a lot of the leaders lost out on the segregation fight, so they needed to move the battlefield into other social areas. Homosexuality, drugs, security, our borders, the great others, and abortion. That's all political. It's all part of the machinations of a few leaders working to get the right people in office, responding to Kennedy, responding to a lot of the Great Society stuff put out there by Lyndon Johnson. We can't keep losing. Where do we go? Who do we look to? What's going on in the South? They want to rise again? Let's give them a path forward to that. And Nixon shows up, and Nixon has some rather liberal and progressive ideas and policies and ideas that getting put into action that I think would ruffle the feathers of Republicans now if you really looked at it. But my point of all it is, not doing a rundown of this, is when someone like Jelly Roll, who I believe's sincere in what he's experiencing with his religious walk and his religious journey and his relationship with who he calls Christ and God, I think when you hear someone like him and other pastors or other believers pull back on the, I can't comment on that. The church shouldn't be political. The church is political. It's always been political. I'm not saying God is political. He might have some ideas. I think I might know what he's rooting for, but I also can't claim to speak for God. I mean, that's part of my problem with the Bible. I have beliefs now that there is something, a God, whatever, a universe spirit, but I also don't want to back off of saying the term God. I have, in my heart, examples and places in my life where the belief of God or the existence of a God seems real to me, but unexplainable to me. And you have this great, powerful book, the greatest book of all time, full of a lot of great wisdom and a lot of good ideas, many of them being ignored by those who claim to follow it, of course. But that is just me being a snarky little cynical asshole if you dig too much into that at this point, right now in this conversation. But I believe it was all put in place by men in power. Organized, reorganized, changed, errors corrected, errors made, errors corrected again. I believe it's fallible in the sense of I'm not one that thinks the Bible is God's inspired word necessarily. Maybe it could be, maybe it was, maybe it will be again. I don't know. I didn't go to seminary school. I'm just a dumb redneck. No. But it's always been about those behind it wanting to keep their power, and that's politics. The church has always been political. So if you stand in front of an audience or stand in front of reporters and refuse to comment at all, that's where we have trouble, and that's where we lose respect. You don't get to hide behind an apolitical church. I'm not necessarily saying this in the case of a man known as Jelly Roll, but I think I'd be okay in a weird way if you stand up, like some of these Republican politicians currently do. But if you stand up and say, yeah, I think what's going on with ICE is completely justified by the Bible. There we go. Okay. We are clear where you're coming from. That almost is more acceptable to me than, I don't have any thoughts on it. I just love Jesus. I don't know. I don't even know what's going on. What is ICE doing? What are they doing? I haven't paid attention. I don't even have a phone. Hi, what happened? No. That is cowardice. And it is wrong. It's incorrect. The church is political. You don't get to run away from that. So I hope someone like Jelly Roll or others in his position or in their positions who have those beliefs see where we're coming from. We're not frustrated because of some persecution against Christians. We're frustrated because this is all happening and you refuse to acknowledge it, often behind the protection of your beliefs in your Bible and your Redeemer. Final thing on my mind this week is the Epstein Files. Let's go to some light stuff. Here's the thing. I will admit to at one point, not too long ago, maybe a year or so ago, maybe right when Trump got in office, where there was kind of this like, hey, his people got into power and there was this kind of like party line of, hey, ain't nothing in there. And I'm not saying it like I bought that or believed it, but I thought there might have been some truth to that because the Epstein Files or Epstein's death, unintentional or not, or intentional at his own hands, you know what I mean? It was all wrapped up in conspiracy. And I am of the type of person that does love conspiracy culture, does love studying it, does love kind of paying attention to them. And for most of 2024, my job was to write YouTube scripts about the biggest conspiracies of our time and look into the debunks, look into what we knew. So I don't want to say wrote it off, but any conversation around the Epstein Files or Epstein's death was couched in that for me. And so when, these powers that be got into the office, got back into the White House, and we're like, hey, disclosure, this is something we're going to do. And what came back was, nothing there. Again, not saying I necessarily bought that. But I just kind of was like, yeah, there's a good chance that's probably actually the case, that there isn't what people think would be there. But here we are. And we don't even have all that we need. We don't even have all that's in there. And it continues to be horrific. It continues to be, in a weird way, worse than we even imagined. And there's a lot of great takes and a lot of great breakdowns on it. A lot of YouTubers and talking heads on the news, a lot of think pieces, a lot of things of why this is all bad. And all of it is, I would say, true. The thing where I'm at and where I've been, and like I said, I wanted to record this last week, but I'm glad I actually had a little more time to think about it. I go off the cuff here, so hopefully I can say this right. I do think it's easy, though this is all horrific. I do think it's easy to kind of watch this stuff with a little bit of distance, a little bit of disassociation, and it's scandalous, right? It perhaps might be one of the biggest scandals in the world in terms of just our entire history. This isn't like a new Watergate. Watergate was a fun little weekend crime spree compared to what this is. I hope the result is somewhat the same, though. But one of the aspects about this that I've just been stuck on and just thinking is, what do you take from this? But there was a lot of folks who put this out there. There's two kind of different versions of it. There's some folks going, well, I guess the conspiracy theorists were right. And then there were some folks correctly saying, you don't need to even, whether that's true or not, you don't even need to give the conspiracy theorists credit. How about the thousands of women that had come forward, were willing to come forward, still want to come forward, still can't come forward? What about them? That wasn't a conspiracy. This is something that they have had to, hopefully can continue to survive and work through and thrive beyond. And that's the angle that I stuck on. The first thing about conspiracy theorists, I'll say, is they're never as right as they seem. All right? Don't give them too much credit. There's a fine line between some of the more clandestine plots or programs or things that have happened. MK Ultra always comes up, and these are things you can look up. There was the American and Vatican-supported terror attacks, and it was Italy and everything, all those kind of things. I spent a year writing a lot of scripts on this stuff, and it is fascinating. Those aren't necessarily conspiracies. We give conspiracy theorists too much credit. And also, even if they are right, you need to be careful about who you're giving credit to. First of all, a lot of the folks, and I remember seeing this. I was at a concert in 2022 down in Orange County. And if you don't know Orange County, it is a red curtain. They call it the orange curtain, but it's a red curtain. For those, a little shocked that Gwen Stefani went the direction she did. She's from like the Orange County region. This is not uncommon. A lot of American flags turned into Bible covers and crosses out there, all right? And I was at a concert down in Anaheim 2022, and someone had like a Make Pedophiles Afraid shirt on. Great. I'm for that. But those are the conspiracy theorists who wanted you to believe that all this was going on was this conspiracy, mostly of the rich liberal elite, maybe some of the other ones on our side, but don't worry about those. And our hero, Donald Trump, will expose them all. The fact that he's in there and those pictures of him, no, Donald's going to expose them all. Don't worry. Patel and Bongino and Bondi, these are the folks. The conspiracy's real. They're in there, and they're going to prove it. That's not right. They're not being right about the conspiracy. And this is why I say be careful, even if the ones you have fun with. I always go to this example because I think it's a great example of a fun conspiracy theory that you can have a little fun discussion with people out in the wild about this one. And it's the Denver airport. And is that a secret Illuminati base? What's all the signs there? There's some symbols that are unexplained. There's a big blue demonic horse out front that killed its creator. There's tunnels. There's the budget of the building of the airport in the 90s was too large, and it was also too delayed. And then even the remodels got too big of a budget and too long delayed. The Denver airport and the story behind it and the lore is a fun conspiracy. I've had conversations about it too. But the conspiracy comes from a female author named Alex Christopher, who in the early 90s went on a radio show up in the Berkeley area, the Northern California region. That was one of those conspiracy shows, but not the fun Art Bell AM Coast to Coast, George Norrie hosts now version, which is a show I actually occasionally still listen to. I used to listen to when I worked graveyards and security. It was a great thing to get you through the night. AM Coast to Coast with Art Bell talking about aliens and Bigfoots and Illuminati. Fun stuff. But this show was a little more serious. And Alex Christopher was the one this Denver airport kind of theory begins around. And it is fun. Lizard people. Oh my gosh. What's going on underneath the Denver airport? You can debunk all of it, by the way. It's all pretty simply debunked. Even some of the weird symbols, debunked. Some of the art. There's these famous murals that were put away for a while during the remodel. They might be back out by now. And they're kind of weird until you listen to the artists explain it all. It's not that weird. The horse out front, the blue demonic horse, is explainable. The accident, tragic. It's all explainable unless you want to completely go, no. But Alex Christopher started this theory in large part. This first mention of it in the 90s on this radio show. Alex Christopher is a Holocaust denier. She's an anti-Semite. And this is all part of her big theory, too. David Icke, later on, by 99, becomes kind of infamous for putting out the lizard people thing, which is based in anti-Semitism. So even if you're just having fun with the Denver airport conspiracy theory, I think most people don't know where it comes from and why Alex Christopher put it into the world. Alex Christopher has a book that came out around this time about all this, and I got a copy of the book, had to find it deep on the internet. Not the dark web, but I found it. I have a PDF copy. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great information, because my job was to kind of write things and debunk this and find out what's kind of fun for our audience to either learn, or maybe we'll play with how it's presented, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, let me poke through her book. The first page has a line where she says something, and then she says, and we all know the Holocaust isn't real. There it is. There's the shoe dropping. So on the off chance that maybe, hey, someday someone goes, guess what? Beneath the Denver airport, there are secret tunnels that the government uses. When Obama was diverted there, I think it was like 2012 or something, in Air Force One, he did go into secret bunkers. Yeah, sometimes that stuff is real. There was like a place in Washington, D.C. beneath the hotel that there was like a secret bunker for our leaders. Yeah, that kind of stuff is real. But even if the Denver airport one is true, to publicly come out and say, I guess Alex Christopher is right, means you're aligning yourself with someone whose intentions behind the theory being in the world were misplaced to begin with, and not someone you should stand with. So even in jest saying, I guess the conspiracy theorists are right about Epstein, puts you among the wrong company. And then it's true. All the women had come forward. We shouldn't have needed the conspiracy theorists to believe it. And that includes maybe even me. Now, I don't think we have all the information. Names are redacted, everything. I was watching the Pam Bondi stuff, the hearing today. It's salacious. And if you're not careful, you can get pulled into it. If you're not careful, you can start having a little fun watching all this. Now, again, there's so much disgusting things there. It's harder and harder and harder to find the Epstein Files, the fun little conversation. But you know what I mean? We're so disassociated from it. that it can just become part of the circus, right? Like I remember as a young kid watching Ollie North, the congressional hearings with the Iran-Contra stuff. I don't know what any of that was at the time, but it was and then Saturday Night Live did a parody of it. And, I remember Kevin Nealon doing a young Joe Biden. And when Joe Biden, first, ran for vice president with Obama, my first thought was, the Kevin Nealon on SNL. Like that can wash down a lot of our experiences just by being treated as pop culture. And that doesn't mean you can't have jokes about the Epstein Files or anything like that. No, that's part of processing it. Comics on stage got some great ones, by the way, and it's a great way to use humor to make a point. And so I'm not saying any of that. This isn't that. But you know what I mean? When you're disassociated enough, you forget the victims of these crimes, of these acts. I think it's correct to call them survivors, but they're also victims of these heinous, heinous men. And the big final thought and why it's on my mind is seeing people put that out of like, you don't need to believe the conspiracy theorists. You could have believed the victims of these horrible acts, the women. Could have believed them. The Epstein Files is about a lot of things. This whole Epstein Island, everything about it is about power. It is about the elite. It is about the ruling class. But it is also about men. Yes, some of the women who help these men. But it is about men. It's about the patriarchy. It is about this false sense of what power and prestige can get you, what it can allow you to get. Grab him by the pussy, said Donald Trump. Should have ended his political career right then and there. He spelled it out right there. And there are some takes that are smarter than me. I was listening to some folks that there's the angle, and I'll try, it's tough to say the word on YouTube only because, this does generate money for me, the 20 cents that I need. But the underage aspect of it, I'll just say, correctly gets focused on. But there's some folks out there smarter than me who are saying like, hey, we have to kind of divide it between there's those who might have this condition, this predilection to being attracted to these underage folks, and maybe they know it, maybe they go get help, and it's a whole other conversation versus kind of what these sick fucks are doing. And that stuck with me too, based, connected to what I'm thinking here when I talk about the patriarchy. When I mention that we should smash the patriarchy from my point of view, it is a lot about what it does to men. That's why there is no greater example of how the patriarchy hurts men than the Barbie movie. Ken's whole day is based around whether Barbie pays attention to him or not is a very real thing. But that's almost too lighthearted for this conversation. The other side, and it's a small sliver of this patriarchy that you hear so much, this word that offends so many people. It is about the view, the perspective that not only are men can control, but when they get this power, they can take whatever they want. They can give in to all of those urges, no matter how disgusting, despicable, disturbing, and criminal they are. When I hear all this stuff going around with the Epstein Files, I don't necessarily just think of this as the 1% run amok. I think this is men run amok. I think this is centuries of men being allowed to treat women as conquests, to treat women as property, and to have been given permission by the systems of our times and the systems of their times, given permission to do so by even some of our religious leaders and our religious texts. And hey, maybe some of what is said in things like the Bible about the man in control of the house, the church, the husband, the father, the wife, the kid. Maybe there's some good intention to that. I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but maybe. But it's definitely been extrapolated and expanded upon in bad ways. We have an entire history of men being conditioned to go out and conquer, to go out and get what they want, and to treat women like objects. Plain as day. Not all men. Yeah, not all men. But even a guy like me, who I'm going to say, hey, Ty's pretty good dude. Pretty good dude. Pretty simple dude, okay? Even me has had to kind of pull apart, like, my relationship to that. Even when it comes to pursuing women or relationships, when it comes to jobs. And once it shifts, once you see it, hopefully you never can forget it. When you listen to women, a former girlfriend of mine used to run malls. Was kind of a wonderkin at it. Was very young running malls, which are complicated things to run, by the way. They are truly small cities. And she would tell me tales of contractors coming to tell her how to do it. Yeah, now, little lady, let me tell you how to do this. Fuck you, dude. I remember early on in my Screen Junkies career, sitting in a meeting, all of us planning some big things for Screen Junkies. And none of this nefarious, just the way it is. 13 of us in a room, and I remember looking at the time, there was one woman. Later on, there was 2 or 3. That was one of the first times, because I had been in this alpha male mall world, and I had some of these realizations and everything. It was one of the first times I went, wow, that's their experience every day. And it seems so simple. It seems so silly. But I had not spent time pondering that. I didn't need to. I've never had to spend time pondering that. That is their daily existence. I said something to one of them. Just kind of noticed that you're the only woman here. Yeah, thanks. But yes. When I look at what is happening now with the Epstein Files, this is what I see. Yes, again, power, money, the rich, the elite, what they can think they can get away from, pedos, all those things. Yes, all valuable, all important, all part of it. But I just see men getting to act in the most unfettered manner. And that's why you're seeing some surprising names, even if you don't know the names, but there's some names or some people on there or some things that are going on. And again, I haven't spent a lot of time in them, but you know what I'm talking about. Some of the names are like that. Not that guy in the terms of like, I thought he was a nice guy, but just like, what is this paleontologist was over there? Like, this isn't just party boys in Miami, fuck boys or billionaires, crypto bros. This is like kind of normal dudes. Normal dorky dudes with positions of power and prestige. And once they got there, they were like, yeah, let's go to Fuck Island. There's a beast in every man, and it stirs when you put a sword in his hand. I say that so many times from Game of Thrones because it's goddamn true. It's been burnt into our nature. I am in 2 industries, or have been involved in 2 industries that are not unique, what I'm about to say, but I've been involved in 2 industries in which the women in the industry, and there's, big industries, a lot of different kind of people in there, but I'm talking about women, those who identify as women. But there are 2 industries I've been in, one that I'm currently in, one that I'm always dancing around. It's stand-up comedy and the movie press world, the movie chat world. The digital media existence. These are 2 industries. And pro wrestling's probably got this too, but it's been so far removed. But I got to imagine it's the same. Also, I got to imagine it's the same in if you're a college professor, if you're in science, if you're in politics, if you're in the police departments. I bet this is everywhere. But I've experienced it twice. Where in these 2 spaces, comedy and movie press, the women of those industries have had to make actual physical lists of men to avoid. Think about that. It's real. You want to know about your lists? We got these big lists we're watching on the news every day. What about these lists? They exist and they're in your world. There are people in that movie chat space or the Hollywood space that are so problematic, and there's varying levels of it. This might be a sexual assaulter. This might be the squeezes when he hugs you guy. Or this might be the don't ever be in a room alone with him guy. If he asks you on your podcast, make sure there's some other people on it so when you go to the studio or go to his house to record that you're not alone with him. Those lists are real. In stand-up comedy, there's varying degrees of lists depending on the pockets of female performers, depending on the friend groups. But when you see like a group of female comics and they have like we put these shows on, or we have writing groups, there's a lot of value to that. There's some who have been in the business and they mentor and they teach, and there's new folks coming in, not just they're young women, but just new women coming in. And it's all wonderful. It's all wonderful to watch. But know that within those groups, they're all sharing information too of, if you're on a show with this comic, just know that this is what he did to a waitress in Denver. Just know this is what he did to a comic over there. Oh, you're on that show with that guy? Here's what he's going to say on stage that's really disgusting. Oh, that guy invited you to feature for him on the road? Make sure you're not only in a separate hotel room, but bring a weapon. Like this stuff is real. Stuff is real. So when I hear that stuff in my own industries, and then I see what's going on in the Epstein Files, this is what I go to. This is what I think. There's a lot of things that we can hopefully change. A lot of things exposed, but it isn't just a conspiracy theory about the elite. This is about men. And I don't know if it's going to be a reckoning. I wish it was, but I don't think it is. I think it's what is more realistic. If you're listening to this and my audience is mostly men, and my audience is mostly good men, my audience is mostly men that probably wouldn't be on these lists in their industries or in anything bigger. Don't let this pass you. Don't let this get away from you. Don't fail to think about what is actually going on and what can you do in your circle to change it. Don't be on those lists, especially the ones that are right under your nose. God bless the survivors as we continue to hopefully get justice for what's happened. I recently had a taquito at 7-Eleven that was divine. I'm trying to eat better right now. I'm trying to lose some weight and get into shape. I still go to 7-Eleven. And that's this episode of The Three Things. Hey, I'm Cat Napzok. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're here on YouTube, leave a comment. If you want to call me a cuck soy boy, great. Love it. Great. Love it. It's not my life going down the drain. I appreciate you all. Appreciate you letting me go on this journey, not just in this episode, but in the journey overall. We'll see you. Hey, if you're listening on the audio feed, let me know too. Just want to know that people are still there in the podcast feed. Episodes of Blathering out. Check out Force Center. Check out Casually Talk. Check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/KenNapzok. Mixcloud for Pop Rockin' Radio, and Pop Rockin' Radio is on Patreon page. Who cares? It's stuff. That's it. That's the three things here on the Napzok Files Network. See you next time. Bye.